Welcome back to For the Elevate. This is our 4th episode, and we hope you're enjoying our video chats just as much as we are. We also hope you're finding a few key takeaways in each one of these that are helping you maneuver successfully through these crazy and often chaotic times at work, at home, or maybe even both. In this episode, we'll focus on the power of positive feedback. It seems rather obvious that we all need positive feedback, but why is it so difficult to give and or receive? We will give you some helpful tips that you can immediately put into practice, practice being the key word here. So stay tuned as Leanna leads us on this journey. We even have a great acronym thrown in for good measure, so listen closely.
Welcome back to For the Elevate. We're all back to discuss living, leading, and learning. Myself, Leanna, we've got Bridget and Kathy continuing the discussion. Today, we are going to follow up on a little bit of what we started talking about in the last session, which was feedback. And positive feedback, I think, was where we left off. And there was some room to elaborate on that.
You are correct.
Please share your thoughts, ladies, on positive feedback. Is it important? Why?
Go for it, Kathy.
It's important. So too often when we hear that word feedback, we're like, don't talk to me. It's kind of a scary thing. And we need to get a lot better at giving positive feedback. And I think when it's really powerful is when we do it with some detail. Like, this is what I saw that I really appreciated. Or this is how, when you did that, it made me feel like I was important. So giving people the feedback versus a way to go, that was great, is way more impactful than the generic statements.
Well, and I think it's really important to make sure that you're the one giving the feedback, because how often have you heard, and I've heard this a lot in my career, can you just tell that person that they did a great job? Well, I can, but it would be better if it came from you. So making sure that you're the one giving the feedback, it makes all the difference in the world. And it should be that way anyway.
Absolutely. Another version of that is you'll hear from a colleague. I don't know if they've mentioned this, but they said to me that you did a really good job on that presentation or on whatever it may have been. And there's a really?
Right.
Why didn't I hear it from them? That's a really good question.
And what a missed opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, a lot of people find that very difficult to give positive feedback, and it's free. Like, let's embrace this. We live in a society now where there's so much ugly, so much just ain't it awful going on, where people could really use positive feedback, and we all need that.
Yeah. So I've had people say that to me too. After a leadership class, is I'm just not comfortable with giving. I'm not comfortable with it. My response, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong, is I always say to them, get comfortable with it. That's literally my response. And because I honestly feel that if there's something that we're not comfortable with, if you don't make some effort to push past it, first of all, there's zero growth for you. And your team doesn't get what they need.
Yeah, and it really isn't about how you feel. It's really about, is this going to be a benefit to someone else? Is this going to help someone else develop? Will this help improve our relationship? So feelings aside, I say be uncomfortable, and do it anyway, because it's really important.
Yeah. Well, and as leaders, you really owe that to your team, to the individual, but it's also important to practice.
Yes,
and, you don't have to be perfect at it, but just start small and do that. It can really make a difference. And your first time out of the gate, you'll see that.
Yeah,
well, and
I agree.
And even you can do it in writing. If you're not like good on your feet and giving verbal feedback like that, think it through. Write a note, send an email, but make it specific. Bridget is really good at that. She's a card sender with really nice notes, and I save them all, and she gets not too much from me, but hey, I try.
You're going to practice.
There you
I'm
go.
practicing.
I like that. I've also heard it. There's an acronym. A friend of mine uses the acronym ABC because she says it's as simple as ABC. State the action, the benefit of the action, which was to your point, Kathy, like what was the effect, right? It's cause and effect. And then say thank you, like commend. So ABC, action, benefit, commend. Because I think just saying great job is just a blanket statement and people go, oh yeah, it's great. But if you're specific, I think people really take it as a, wow, they noticed that.
Well, and it's so important in our leadership journey to learn those things very early on. And quite often we put individuals in leadership positions and we don't give them the basic training that they really need to manage individuals and teams. And these are the kinds of things that are very helpful to them and go a long way with the team.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
positive. Go ahead.
Bridget and I were just talking the other day about actually leadership etiquette. It's kind of maybe a dying art. But there is an etiquette to good leadership, and it's how you treat each other. It's in giving positive feedback and critical feedback is important, but it's in how you do that, and remembering that there's an art to leadership, and practicing is just a really important part of it.
Yeah. So I think sometimes too, I've asked people in the past, do you give feedback to your kids? Do you give positive feedback to your kids? Do you give, developmental or constructive criticism to your kids, or negative feedback, however you want to put it, although that's not my favorite term. And they all say yes. And when I ask them why, their answer is, because I care about them. So
Absolutely.
we need to apply that to the people on our teams as well.
Yeah, I always say the opposite of love isn't hate. The opposite of love is I don't even care enough to have a conversation with you. It's apathy. And we need to do better than that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's powerful for sure. And then we talk about that developmental or constructive criticism. What happens if someone never gets positive feedback from a leader and then they have to have a discussion about constructive criticism? How does that go?
Boy, well, that's when you're holding your breath because you know it's coming. And I always say, nice to invest in someone before you start taking some of those chips back out. So I think it's really important to start on the pause.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I think if you're constantly peppering that positive feedback, when those situations arise, they're seen more as situational because like they know that you notice that you're doing a good job. You've already expressed that. You see the good job. You verbalized it.
Well, and one of the worst things you can do, and I've never been a big fan of these, are these annual reviews, because you forget all the good that has gone on throughout the year. And if there has been, by chance, a negative situation, that's what you lead off with quite often. And that's such a disservice to the individual.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to do better about that. I mean, again, I'm not a big fan of the annual review. I think you can do that periodically throughout the year. And as we were just talking about, it gives them real-time feedback, which is much more helpful in the end.
Scheduling one-to-ones.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, what a good idea. And if you're giving positive and the constructive feedback on areas to improve on at the same time, people get used to it. I mean, they really do. It's like, okay, she's investing in me. Okay, this is important. I need to pay attention. And they pay attention to both sides of that. And it becomes part of the relationship versus the annual event where I'm evaluating you. Yeah.
And you know what? I have cards from people.
Mhm.
And I can remember it's lovely, but also on some level it's sad because positive feedback I don't think is given out as much as it should be. Maybe I didn't deserve it. Or is
I think you deserve it, Leanna.
But I can remember the times when leaders, specifically those handful or whatever number of times that someone came up to me and said, you know what, that stuck with me. I mean, that stayed with me. And I productivity goes up, loyalty goes up, all of those things go up when you hear that you're doing a good job and that you're valued, right?
Right.
Yeah. So can I share my favorite quote?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's actually from Mary Kay.
Oh.
Mary Kay said, everyone has an invisible sign around their neck that says, I need to feel important. And I equate important with valued. So Miss Mary Kay knocked it out of the park on that one, because I think everybody does.
Absolutely. They do. And it is, making sure that they are valued. It's free. It costs absolutely nothing. And it takes such a small amount of time to make a huge difference. And that thank you, I mean, when we were all together in offices, walking down the hallway, stopping in, saying, hey, really loved what you did today. Now you have to make a little bit more effort because we are in these hybrid models. So you have to make that effort to call them, send them a message, whatever it may be. I mean, I think it's important to do the one-on-one, the real interaction instead of an email. But if it's impossible and you feel more comfortable with that, then go ahead, but don't not do it. Right?
Yes.
It's so important.
Amen. Even if, write a little template, put an ABC and
exactly.
Get your thoughts together. Think about somebody in the last week that deserves spot. And it doesn't have to be above and beyond stuff, right? I mean, it can be, right. Thanks for coming in here with a great attitude every day. Because of that, people have a better day in general. And thank you, or keep up the great work, or whatever it may be.
Well, something that I've seen a lot of recently are these gratitude jars. So you can do that virtually or in person. There's a lot of ways to do that. But, and I also heard that someone thought that was a bit schmaltzy and, wasn't really great, but so many appreciate it because sometimes they're not on the receiving end of it, but I guarantee you those who are receiving it really appreciate it. So start small, do something cool like that.
Well, even when you say something that's schmaltzy or, not too cool, when you give that individual positive feedback, they really love it. So they might be a little embarrassed by it. They might not quite know how to take it, but it's sincere feedback that is well meant is a gift, and they know it. So even when people say that, I'm not really buying it.
I agree.
I can speak for myself because I always say, oh, I'm fine. I don't need positive feedback. As long as I know I'm doing a good job, I'm fine. Then somebody gives me some and I go, oh.
Yeah, it feels pretty good.
That's amazing.
I like it.
All right. Well, I think we can wrap this part up, and I'm sure feedback on all levels is going to continue to come up as a theme throughout because it is so uber important. But I also want to mention something that Kathy said earlier, which was, gee, ain't it awful? Seems to be a kind of attitude that's infused its way into all of us. So not most of us. It's certainly more prevalent than it used to be. So why don't we talk about that next time and see if there might be something we can do about that.
That sounds perfect.
That would be awesome.
All right then, see you next time.
Thank you for taking time out of your very busy day and spending it with us. Maybe it was that perfect brain break or an opportunity to learn something new. We certainly hope so. We'd like to end our episodes with a funny quote to think about when the day gets just a little too heavy for you. We lovingly refer to them as titter times. So here's one we're especially fond of for this conversation you just tuned into. I was born to be a pessimist. My blood type is B negative. Okay, so the author is unknown for this quote, and maybe that's a good thing. You be the judge. But hopefully you laugh just a little bit because we love this one. So to complete this episode, please don't forget to leave us comments. Let us know what resonated with you. Let us know if you laughed. And of course, let us know what you would like to hear more about in future episodes. So until next time, keep moving towards that healthier you. Do it for the elephant.